Isn't that beautiful? This place in California transformed this. That is. This reminds me of Amsterdam and London.
Good evening. I call this meeting for today is March the 3rd to order. Maybe please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are now moving to roll call. Clerk, please.
Thank you. Trustee Monica,
Here.
trustee Cascarella,
Present.
trustee Bowen,
Here.
treasurer Fedewa. Clerk Clark is present, supervisor Brewer.
Present.
You have quorum.
We have a quorum. Thank you. Is there a motion to excuse Treasurer Fedewa?
So moved. Support.
Been moved by trustee Bowen and trustee Pascarella. I don't know if you heard this. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion passes. We do not have any presentations or proclamations tonight, but I did want to take a moment to say to the board members, in front of you, you should each have a binder. As we prepare to bring on a new trustee, I thought it would be helpful to have a binder that just has some real helpful information in it. We want to get whomever joins us started off right. And so thank goodness to the administrative team. They did put together this binder. This is for you to keep, board members. And there's a lot of great stuff in it. If there's something that's missing that you think would be of help to you to have, please let me know or let Brian know or Aaron, and they'll be glad to get that added. So you will receive updates to some of the information, and I'll just quickly tell you what's in it for the people that are here. There's the budget and bond rating, which is important for us to know. The strategic plan is in here, any outstanding projects, the organizational chart and department list, boards and commissions list with the meeting dates, information on where all of our parks, paths, and boat launch sites are located. Our economic development activity, I call it the Peter Report. That will always be in here. Any township awards, the Charter Township Act. I think it's important to have that with us. And then just some helpful articles. But behind the first colorful tab, you'll see QR codes. There's a page that has QR codes that take you directly to a lot of this information. So I hope it's useful. I thought it might be. This is what it looks like on the front for those out there that I'm going to have mine with me all the time. So it's just a wealth of information. This is for you, board members.
Ma'am. Thank you, Supervisor.
Okay, we are now on the agenda. Are there any changes or amendments?
Just going to move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you both for that. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. We do not have any public hearings tonight, nor is there any communications that I see in our packets. We are now on to public comment. And the public comment is 3 minutes. We welcome anyone and everyone who wants to come up and say a few things. We just ask that you state your name and that we are not able to comment back. This is your time to speak to us, and we welcome that. So is there anyone who would like to come up for 3 minutes? Thank you.
Good evening. I wanted to, first of all, David Howell, 9487 Guinea Road, you're all invited.
Okay.
I wanted to address my remarks to the agenda item on the MISHDA grant agreement, which is supposed to be voted on later on this evening. But before I do that, I wanted to just basically ask a question. what housing crisis? Where are the receipts? Where are the studies that show that we have a housing crisis here in Delta Township? Certainly, the major employers here don't think so. Amazon doesn't think so. Meyer doesn't think so. General Motors doesn't think so. Toyota doesn't think so. The Ultium 3 battery plant doesn't think so. Auto Owners Insurance doesn't think so. And multiple auto part factories don't think so. And I say that because there have not been any studies presented yet that show that there is a housing crisis yet. Haven't seen one in the agenda. All I've seen is just a lot of public pronouncements saying that there is a crisis. But these major employers spend billions of dollars to locate their factories and their businesses here in Delta Township. And I'm not a developer. I don't own a factory, but far be it from me to locate a factory or a major development in an area where there's not sufficient workforce. Places where there is a housing crisis is probably Palos Verdes, California, Western North Carolina, and Western North Dakota, where they don't have enough housing for all the oil field workers. Michigan is also flat in population growth. I believe we're number 49 out of 50 states in terms of population growth. And if you look in East Lansing, all of the new housing developments, all those apartments along Michigan Avenue, none of them are, quote, affordable housing, unquote. Those apartments are at market price, and they are for students and they are for young professionals that are graduating from Michigan State University. So all I can conclude is that there's no economic imperative for affordable housing in Delta Township, but there is a political imperative. As far as the issue being voted on tonight, there's yet to be any public outreach. There's yet to be a public town hall. There's yet to be any public mention in Delta Magazine about the affordable housing issue and the approach that the board wants to take. And if you look at the agreement looks like it's already locked in. As soon as it's signed by the township manager, we're locked in to things like increasing efforts in marketing workforce housing, review and update of any regulations that hinder workforce housing. That's the ordinance. Create a program to allocate funds specifically for workforce housing. Make use of local revenue sources to assist with infrastructure costs to improve project feasibility. It also says the grant terms cannot be increased or deviated from the boilerplate language. All grant funds must be fully expended no later than August 31st, 2029.
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that is your time. But thank you so much. And we
Okay.
will have a second public comment.
Okay, thank you
you.
very much.
Mhm.
David Hart, 4509 Meaford Street. Good evening, members of the board. Tonight, you have the difficult task of selecting the next trustee for Delta Township. There is no doubt that all of the candidates here are qualified and bring something valuable to the table. But I ask you to consider more than just resumes and experience. I ask you to consider dedication, selflessness, and a lifelong commitment to serving others. For as long as I can remember, my mom has led by example. She didn't just tell me about the importance of service, she lived it. She was the mom who volunteered at my school, not because she had to, but because she wanted to support every child's learning. She gives her time to our church, organizing, leading, and always finding ways to bring people together. Whenever someone in our community is struggling, she is the first to offer a helping hand, whether it is a friend, a neighbor, or even a stranger. She has spent years giving her time, energy, and heart to this township. My mom doesn't see service as an obligation, it's simply who she is. After the 2024 election, she has remained engaged, ready to serve, and willing to work for every member in this community. That kind of dedication is rare. This is the kind of perseverance and leadership we want on the Delta Township Board. If she is appointed, I have strong confidence she will serve with integrity, respect, and a collaborative spirit. She will work to find solutions, not create divisions. She will put this community first, just as she always has. So tonight, I ask you to appoint Michelle Hart to the open Delta Township trustee position. I promise you, no one will work harder, give more, or be more dedicated to the people of Delta Township than she will. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart.
My name is Robert Payne. I'm a 30-year resident of Delta Township. I live at 1530 Smoke Drift Lane, Lansing, Michigan. I support Michelle Hart as a candidate for the position of trustee for the Delta Township Board of Trustees. Please consider the following information. Michelle Hart is highly motivated and interested in being elected to the Delta Township Board of Trustees. Michelle Hart conducted a popular and aggressive campaign during 2024. Michelle Hart received 8,212 votes in the November 5, 2024 election. That number put her in a position to be the next candidate to be elected if there had been one additional position available at that time. I voted for Michelle Hart on November 5. I recommend that all members of the board vote to elect Michelle Hart as the next trustee for Delta Township. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Payne.
Good evening, Delta Township Board. My name is Diane Novak and I live at 1421 Stony Point Drive. I've been a resident there for almost 22 years and it will be this August. My public comment this evening is relation to the trustee position vacancy and current applicants. I support Michelle Hart. In addition to my letter of recommendation, which was included in her application, I am also stating my public comment to the board, individuals in this room, and everyone that will be joining us this evening online. Michelle Hart meets the qualifications of the position, but most importantly, represents a significant growing group of residents in Delta Township, which are not being currently represented on the board. Michelle Hart successfully campaigned, showed by the 8,212 votes, and obtaining the next largest amount of voters cast in the most recent election on November 5th, 2024. By Michelle Hart earning the most highest member of votes cast, clearly states who's the next trustee should be to ensure a representative local Delta Township government. I strongly encourage the board to seriously reflect on this fact upon casting your vote. The trustee position is a representative of the township voters, and it has been demonstrated by the 8,212 votes cast for Michelle Hart. It is now time for a balanced, bipartisan governance. This group of Delta Township residents has spoken. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Novak. And our next public speaker.
Good evening, board. My name is Linda Marquardt. I live at 204 Geneva Circle, and I've been a resident of Delta Township for 68 years. I'm speaking tonight about the trustee appointment process. On February 3rd, this board discussed and agreed to adopt a three-step process that included first, submission of applications no later than 5 p.m. on February 13th. Second, round one interviews on February 17th with a vote determining which candidates would move forward to the second round. Third, and on March 3rd, tonight, each candidate has the opportunity to speak and answer questions, followed by a final vote by the board. No provisions or amendments were introduced, discussed, or voted on at any public meeting since then that would allow the extension of the February 13 application deadline or candidates to make amendments to their applications. Yet, this board has allowed amendments to the application of just one candidate without communicating such an option to the other candidates by allowing the submission of 7 post-deadline endorsement letters to be added to Joshua Lyman's application. This deviation from the board-approved process taints the process and suggests a determinative outcome before continuing the selection process tonight. I'm not an attorney and cannot speak to whether the decision to amend the process outside a public meeting is potentially a violation of election law or the Open Meetings Act. However, I can say that this certainly undermines the board's commitment to fairness, honesty, and transparency. To say the least, I'm quite dismayed. To remedy the situation, I offer the following. First, I recommend Joshua Lyman come to the podium and explain the communications that led to his application being amended. Second, I urge the board to abort tonight's tainted application process and move to have the trustee position determined by voters in an August 2025 special election. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Cheryl Hedberg, 6124 Wind Charm Avenue. I've been a resident of Delta Township for 57 years. My small little piece, since township boards are elected by and accountable to township citizens, I would like to see Michelle Hart, the person that actually ran a campaign and in the last election and also received over 8,000 votes by Delta residents, be our next trustee. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
I'm Sherry Ritchie and I live at 1206 Brookside Drive. I wanted to share an observation from tonight and from 2 weeks ago that one of the candidates for Board of Trustees seat is not saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I think that is a huge concern. It indicates a person that is not a team player. And I thought everyone should know about it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for public comment. I do want to just make a couple of comments if I may. Oh, is there another one? Please, sure, come on up.
Totally getting bashful. I just realized I've been living here since 47 years. I've been involved in the community since fellow by the name of Dwayne Vernon. May he rest in peace. Got me involved in the JCs. We've done a lot for the community. We were the voice for the community where it was needed. We built a diamond for the high school where there were sports needed. We helped there. Sheriff's office, we helped there. They needed a motorcycle. Ever buy a Harley? Our work, we were able to do it. And it wasn't just chicken barbecues. Some of the fire, well.
Please state could you state your name for the record for me, please? Could you just state your name for the record?
My apologies.
No
Dennis
problem.
Dan. I live at 227 Richard Avenue.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. But gosh, any of you remember Tom Stump? Yeah, lived right next door to he and Kathy. My point is, I've been around this community. We've got some fresh new faces working with us. Things are different now. Not everybody's from here, but they're invested here, and I appreciate that. When Michelle stepped forward, I was just ecstatic. I know her heart. She has a servant's attitude. I look at my boys, I look at her boys, I know what that's like. Well, my boys are good because of my wife, and well, Michelle can take credit for everything she's done right. Thank you, dear. But I urge you to create some balance right now in the community, have a greater voice of local, long-term. Well, we have a great voice with Mary, that's for sure. And I know that we don't need, I see Dennis isn't here. We don't need to spend any more money on elections. That thankfully I've worked with Mary and appreciate what she's done for that. So with that, and everyone, have a good evening. Let's carry on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we have a couple more people. Hi, good evening.
All right, my name is Scott Lonier, 8415 Bill Pass, 27-year resident of that place. I guess my 2 cents for tonight is I'm looking at the selection process and you've got it narrowed down to 3 candidates so far. One candidate had been given campaign contributions by a prior board member in a prior campaign that she ran. You have another person who's in consideration who had the fortune of having his application amended and have several endorsements, some very, might I say, some very prestigious endorsements that person got as well too. And then you have a third person who actually ran an election and was the 5th highest vote getter in our township. To me, something doesn't smell right here. I might be just a simple farmer, but to me, the people of the township have clearly spoken, and they spoke in their last election what they felt should be representing them. And I'll give this as one final comment. I don't watch the show, but I know even The View has dissenting voice of a person from the other side of the political aisle. They may get talked over and may get disregarded a whole lot, but at least they're willing to take that on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Shelley Pico, 12795 West Greenfield. Delta Township resident for over 25 years. I just very simply want to say that I am in support of Michelle Hart. I question why my vote over the course of the last 25 years to get a number of you elected counted, and why my vote this last fall didn't. And I also am very interested moving forward in the process and the procedures that you have in place for situations like this, as this probably won't be your last one. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Karen Kennickschnecht and I reside at 4139 Marmore Drive. I've lived in Delta Township for 29 years and I've raised 4 children. My deceased husband was a mechanical engineer, first at the powertrain plant on Canal, and then at Grand River Assembly for a total of 31 years. I have a wealth of job experience, even though raising a family was my most important occupation. For example, in 1978, I worked as an inspector for lifting truck knuckles at Nodular Iron Foundry in Saginaw. And then I've also worked as a substitute social worker clinician for community mental health here in Lansing. My father was a very strong Republican as an electrician, the chief electrician for Gray Iron Foundry in Saginaw. And my mother was a very strong Democrat, raising 5 children, including me, a middle child. I learned the value of differences in problem solving and negotiation in the pursuit of effective solutions by the representation of differences. Therefore, I stand in support of appointing Michelle Hart, a Republican, to the Delta Township Trustee Board because she already has the support of the people by the collection of 8,212 votes. I believe it is unnecessary to continue a further application process when there is a qualified candidate who has done the work of an election and continues to pursue the board position. I would appreciate a response as to why the board feels it's necessary to pursue this further. thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much. Are there any other public comments? Anyone else? Great, thank you. As I mentioned, I just want to say a couple of things, and I certainly welcome the board to comment in any way they want. I just wanted to address about the housing, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. There's been no conversation about housing, and one of the things I've asked of administration is that we have a community event where we're all educated on what I call the alphabet soup of housing, what each type means, and a conversation, a very engaging conversation with anyone who's interested in the community together. And together we'll look at what do we need here in Delta Township and what type of housing do we need. So you can expect that there will be an event planned in the near future, and everybody will be engaged in that conversation, and we'll have a facilitator come in and talk to us about the alphabet soup of housing and what that is, and stats. Why is that necessary in Delta Township? So I wanted to share that with you. There is no commitment in terms of what type of housing we will do with regards to tonight's decision on the housing that's on the agenda. It is simply authorizing and approving, accepting the grant, if you will, and then collectively as a community, we'll work forward in this process in where we go with housing in Delta Township. So I wanted to put that out for all of you. And then secondly, I want to address the suggestion that there was an amendment to a resume. I am not aware of that happening, and I'll probably lean to Clerk Clark a little bit. Your information was provided to us. The candidate's information came in as it was supposed to be on time for the last interaction we had for the interviews, for the 3-minute interviews. And it is my understanding that there was a letter of recommendation that came in as a communication. It was not attached to.
Well, they were all dumped in that file.
They were just all dumped in. So I don't want you to feel like somebody had an opportunity to amend. And I also want you to know that each of these board members all take this very seriously. And where they're placing weight is not necessarily going to be on all of the letters that come in, and they'll speak for themselves. But I wanted you to know that there is no amendment to a resume that came in. And we're going to go through this process as we've outlined in our last meeting, how this process is going to work. And I wanted to assure you that there's nothing that's out of hand that's happening. So I will turn to our board members to make comments. Trustee.
Thank you,
Cascarilla.
Supervisor Brewer. I just want to clarify. So you're saying those were independent communications that came in formally to the township, were shared with the board, not different, maybe in their form, and that those were written, but not different than the oral communications we've received during public comment this evening?
Is that correct, Mary?
I would view it that way, yes.
Thank
I
you.
instructed staff to put
Hold
any
on.
communication, any questions, anything that happened into that folder that everybody on the board had access to. So that's, I quite frankly haven't had time to look at the individual's packet, what was connected tonight, but.
And I have to say, I did not read anything extra beyond what was presented to me during the interviews, just so that you know. Any other board comments on that?
No.
Okay. So I wanted to, we're not taking any questions at this time. I just wanted you to please.
I'd like you to have the letters that were submitted after the deadline.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Note the dates on the top when they were submitted.
Excuse me, we are out of order here, and if you don't mind, I'd like to just keep moving the meeting forward. I wanted to give you some information on our end of how that happened. And as I said, I haven't even looked at it. I looked at what was presented for the interviews, period, for me. And I leave that to the other board members. So thank you so much for the additional information. We are working with what we had in there. All right, we're going to move on to the next thing. We have no ordinances we have the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
There has been a motion and support. Is there any discussion? No discussion. We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Malika,
Yes.
trustee Bowen,
Yes.
trustee Cascarino,
Yes.
treasurer Dawn, clerk Clark, yes, and supervisor Brewer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The motion carries. So now we are on to why most of you are here tonight. We're going to start the process with the Township Trustee Board appointments. And I think it was mentioned in the comments that we really had a process out in play. And today is the day where we're going to have final interviews with the 4 candidates that made it to this level in our last board meeting. And those candidates are Alana Christ, am I saying? Chris, forgive me, Michelle Hart, Doug Konzinski, and Joshua Lyman. And what we plan to do is each candidate will be offered a 2-minute opening statement. And then the candidate will be asked a series of 9 questions. And each board member, we're going to rotate starting from me and going around. Each board member will ask a question. And then at the end of the last candidate speaking, the board members will cast our vote for one candidate. This is our ballot, and we will select one name on this ballot. And this ballot will have the board member's name on it. We want to be transparent for you. The ballot results will be read out loud. I'll read the results out loud. I believe we're going to have Courtney, is she in here in the house? Courtney will tally up our votes for us, and then I will read them. If there is a tie between 2 people, there will be a second vote cast. Excuse me, in the event that there is a tie, we will give the candidates a couple of minutes to say something that they would like to say, those final 2 candidates, and then we will cast a second vote. A simple majority of the votes casted will determine the winner. Now, as we move into this process, we are going to ask that the candidates, I'll pull the name so you'll know your order, but the candidates that's being interviewed will remain in this room. The other remaining candidates will go to room C, and there will be a staff member over there with you. And we only ask that you do not go on Zoom and look at the board meeting, because we want the questions to be presented to you as new and to be fair. So I'm going to pull the names, and then that first person will remain here. And the other 3 will go over to Mary. Is there somebody over in C?
I'll go over.
Mary Warland will get you over to room C. Any questions, board members? Yes,
I have a statement, not a question.
yes, go ahead.
I just want to say, I believe that the only qualifications for being a member of this board is that you have to be a resident of Delta Township, and I'm guessing a voter. It's a registered voter, an adult. So all 4 candidates are qualified in that way. And I'd also like to point out that all 4 candidates have run campaigns in the past. For trustee, for supervisor, they have all been candidates. Maybe not in the last election cycle, but all 4 of them have run campaigns.
Thank you, trustee Bowen. Or Clark?
Just was going to ask you, Mary, when you go over, make sure that the mic is not on over, speaker's not on over there.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yeah, you can text.
because I forgot to do that.
Trustee Cascarella, did you have anything?
No, I did not.
Trustee
Thank you.
Mohica?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to pull these names so you can know the order real quick. I'm not going to say that you won $1 million car, so don't look for that. That's not coming out of here. The first candidate is Alana. You'll be candidate 1. Candidate 2 is Michelle Hart. Candidate 3 is Doug Konzinski. Are they, is that crazy? I did shuffle it, guys. And of course, Josh Lyman, that is number 4. So we're going to ask Michelle, Doug, and Joshua to please go over, follow Mary Warland, and go over into room C. Thank you so much. And we're going to ask Alana to please come up to the lectern. We have 9 questions. I'll start the first one after you're going to give a 2-minute opening, but after that, I'll start with the first, go to Andrea, and then I'll go from Beth to Karen to Mary, back to me and to you.
All right,
So
sounds good.
welcome.
Yes,
Welcome.
great, thank you. Glad to be here.
You have 2 minutes to say what you'd like to say before we go into the questions.
All right, well, thank you all for this opportunity. My whole life experience has led up to this moment in a way that I have always been up against an uphill battle. And through my early upbringing, working poor family, in and out of poverty, experienced either directly or with loved ones, things like bullying, gender oppression, homelessness, domestic abuse, addiction. And I did this all in a small town out in rural Washington State, very small town, it's a town of 900. Things like college and let alone public service were never, ever on my radar. So I overcame a lot of those hardships, had some triumphs, and at age 32, I entered college, community college that is, and I took a sociology course. And this course opened up my world because it started to explain how much society can affect individuals, families, and then more importantly, groups by low income groups, people with disabilities, the unhoused, the very young, the very old, groups by race, gender, ethnicity, and more. And that really empowered me because it made me feel like my decisions alone weren't the reasons why I ended up in some of those hardships. So as that, I've dedicated my life to a life of public service since my education up until this moment today. And I look forward to sharing with you some of those examples. But I just want you to know that I care about multiple issues in our township, including housing, small and independent businesses, services and information to underserved groups, investment into public places, public land use, public safety, and even taxes, elections, government accountability, sustainability, infrastructure, and more. So I look forward to sharing with you my ideas for the big picture and to answer your questions. And if I could just step over and get my water.
Sure, sure,
Right.
absolutely, absolutely. And I want to say to everyone too, if our head is down, it's because we're writing notes. So please don't think we're not listening. We're taking notes for some of us. Okay, I'm going to start off with the first question for you,
Great.
Alana. Please describe what you feel the duties and role of a township trustee should be.
Well, that segues nicely into my opening, to serve the public, to be open and receptive to the public's needs, to make sure that we have avenues of communication, both giving and receiving, as far as information and services. And the duties are to uphold, of course, the policies and law that the township has set forth, and to also apply critical thinking to any changes to policy and law. And then as a township trustee member, our duty is also to operate as a board of independent minds, but collectively for that unified goal, right? In addition, I think it's the duty of the township board to work with staff, to work with community leaders, and to work with the businesses and other important social institutions that are in our township to make sure that we are making decisions, putting forth ideas, and coming from a place of true public service that builds community, enriches lives, and ensures that as best we can have equity and justice for everyone to be able to have a healthy, happy, fulfilling, and well-being life. And the township has a lot of opportunities to do that in the form of the various duties. But that would be the overall duties of the township, to work with the public, work with leaders, uphold policy and law, and to make sound decisions based on the best available information we have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Cascarelli. And your
Yes.
name is next to each question. At the end of every question is the board member's name.
Uh, th-
Sorry.
Alana, you touched on a lot of this, but, so this is, I think, a really good follow-up question. Just interested in hearing from you, what do you value most about local government and its role in people's lives? And how should local government function with respect to constituents and residents?
That's a great question. So how, the first part is how local government,
What do you value most?
what I value most. Well, again, based on my experiences, I didn't really have a strong local government growing up, but both being involved with local government, including I did a service term for AmeriCorps, the AmeriCorps Vista term, and I did a service term for the city of Eaton Rapids. So I really got a lot of good insight into that. And I did a communications outreach for them. Took a survey for the city of Eaton Rapids and put together with them a proposal for them to even put together a part-time position in their city. Whether they adapted that or not, some 4 or 5 years later, I'm not sure. But what I value about local government is the availability of support systems for those most in need, the availability for opportunities, right? Because we are in the land of opportunity, right? This is America. We're supposed to be able to have the American dream. And that includes small and independent businesses, right? And then making sure we have opportunity for them, as well as working with larger businesses so people have a viable way to work, but more importantly, they have a livelihood. And I value information that they can give on things of public safety, of things of those weighty documents, from passports to tax information to elections. Those are monumentally valuable. And then, of course, other services for people in need, whether it be safety, right? Responding to domestic violence or crime, whether it be medical, right? Taking care of those who are most in need, and whether it be the other area that I value greatly are things of enrichment, right? So community centers, places of gathering are so important, especially in this day and age where we're so glued to our phones, right? We need to not only celebrate our community, but we need to celebrate the groups and the people that bring us closer together, because when we start talking with one another, whether it be across ideology, religion, race, class, then we start building trust. And so I value those kind of services. I haven't been to too many township events as far as or services such as softball and whatnot. But one I have recently went to is the mom-to-mom sale at the hall, and I was just like, this is so great. Look at everyone's coming together and valuing services. So from the really critical, important things all the way to the enrichment things. Will you please repeat the second part of the question just to make sure I answered it sufficiently?
Yeah, how should local government function with respect to constituents and residents?
Okay, I'll go back to my time at the city of Eaton Rapids. I really got an excellent insight into that, as well as my first AmeriCorps term, where I did it for the American Red Cross. I presented and helped build kits, disaster relief kits for the city of Syracuse and the central New York region, as well as the city of Eaton Rapids. And I really value that open line of communication and the accessibility and availability, right? So their constituents. In addition, right, we see it here. Things like public comments are absolutely valuable. I would like to see even more, right? I love the idea that Fonda presented about complicated issues such as housing, having a different forum where people can gather that information and to be able to be heard, right? Because it doesn't matter our differences, with everyone out here. We may not hang out at the same, same restaurants or same community places, go to the same churches, et cetera. But what does matter is that, and I value in our township is that, as well as any local government, is that we're able to have opportunities for people to bring together. And I think that's a critical role in the township. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Mine is also a two-part question.
Okay.
Our current township board has very diverse backgrounds, both professional and personal experience, from lobbying, state government, HR, communications, and our military. Please explain what in your background and previous experiences makes you uniquely qualified for the position. And further, how do you feel you can bring impact to our working cultural makeup of the board as well as share our values?
Excellent. All right. So I'll answer the first part of the question, and that is essentially what are my qualifications? And so I will, I'm paraphrasing there, if that was a fair paraphrase. I'll just start with you all reviewed my resume, my education. So I'll focus it on how it's relevant to the township. I have a PhD in rural sociology at the Ohio State University, where I also studied for the John Glenn Institute of Public Policy, a very prestigious public policy, where I have a certificate, PhD certificate in public policy. And what I also worked at OSU for the research institution, the Kirwan Institute for the Study of Race and Ethnicity. So all of those are, areas that help me better understand a lot of the various, whether it's demographics or issues or areas in our public sphere. Now, my master's degree in food systems may not seem relevant, but what I studied for my master's degree was I studied social capital, right? We think capital is only monetary capital. Well, there's this really amazing concept called social capital. And what I studied was community resiliency to disasters. And what I literally did is I went to small towns in Vermont, because I got it at the University of Vermont, these small towns that were devastated by Hurricane Irene, or Tropical Storm Irene, I mean. And I went and talked to them, and I went to some of their events, and I went to their schools, and I went to their businesses, and I talked to all their town governments. And I said, how did you weather through this? And some towns did better than others. And I'll tell you what, the towns that did better, they had good schools, right? They had good local government that was accessible to the public. They had a lot of local businesses there, right? And they had, active churches, they had active community groups, and they were able to feed each other and weather the storm, literally and figuratively, right? Because a lot of those towns were isolated for up to a week before any medical or any other assistance were to get there. And then as I started out in community college, but then I transferred to university at the University of Alaska Anchorage, where I got a bachelor's of arts in sociology, and earned top honors, cum laude, 4.0, got 2 research grants. And I studied philosophy and also environmental studies, including filling out things like NEPA and EIA forms. So I've delved into some of the nitty gritty paperwork of things of governance. And also at the University of Alaska Anchorage, I was awarded the Martin Luther King Award for Leadership. And so it was recognized my leadership abilities and qualities early on in my education career. And then as far as my professional experiences, I've already discussed my time for City of Eaton Rapids as service. So AmeriCorps, I assume you're all familiar with the AmeriCorps. They have AmeriCorps and then AmeriCorps Vista. I've done two service terms years. At Vista, again, for City of Eaton Rapids, what I did is I created an online survey. So I used my sociology background. Survey research is one of the areas that you have to know to be able to do. So I created a survey for them, collected demographics, and from there I was able to present to their township or their city board, essentially communications suggestions and eventually a program and a position. And then for the American Red Cross, as I always mentioned, I worked with schools, elderly centers, community centers, low-income groups. And what I did is I provided information about what to do in the time of disaster. And when the Red Cross had the supplies, we actually taught them how to put together kits. Right. So we taught together, you need batteries, you need water, you need a plan of route, you need a little cash on hand, et cetera. So that was great. And then also I worked most recently as a consultant for the CEDM, the Community Economic Development Association of Michigan, over here in Lansing. They're in Rio Town in Lansing. And what I did for them is I did some consulting where I contacted both also all forms of governments, townships, county, cities, and as well as nonprofit organizations. And what essentially I did is gathered the best available, kind of took a lay of the land on how they would be receptive to creating another AmeriCorps program for climate, community resiliency to climate change. And the work I did, not only gave me, a great value of of networking. I'm saying, so, networking through other governments, right? Where we can glean ideas, from other governments on what works best. But the work I did contributed to eventually what became the Climate Resilience Corps under the My Healthy Climate Plan by the governor. So, I was really proud of that.
Thank you. I
Additionally,
want to just,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, to try to keep
Yep.
keep the responses down to like a few minutes per question.
I will
We've
do
got
my
the
best.
four,
Yeah, I have a
if you
lot
could
of
do
experience,
that.
so.
You
I-
do,
I
and
I'll sum up
we have
real
your
quick.
resumes, we've looked at it, we love it, but if you could, keep your responses down to 3 or 4 minutes, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Keep going.
So yeah, I think I highlighted my experience. Will you please repeat the second part?
Yes. How do you feel you can bring impact to our working cultural makeup of the board as well as share our values?
Well, I'll tell you what I told the UAW when I got their endorsement for my primary run, where I worked very hard in that campaign. I arguably, for the primary run, ran one of the most robust campaigns out there. And I told them, as a township trustee for the working people, that what we need to do is not only find ways to create affordable housing, not only do we have to find, make sure we're bringing in businesses and supporting unions to keep up wages, but we need to do our best to facilitate keeping wealth in the community. Keeping wealth in the community is how we help the working families of our community. And there are many direct and indirect and creative ways we can do that. And so that's how I'm going to help the working people. So that's much more concise answer.
Thank you.
No, you're fine.
And for that, again, the UAW gave me their endorsement and I was really proud of that.
Awesome.
All right.
Trustee Malika.
This is also in 2 parts.
Thank you.
Please list what you see as being the top 3 issues facing Delta Township and share your vision on those issues.
Top 3 issues. Okay.
Hold on,
Oh,
let me
sorry.
finish.
Yeah,
Yep.
sorry.
And then what are your priorities, if different, from those listed? And I can repeat the second part.
Okay, so I'll start with the top 3 issues.
Sure.
Thank you for reading the second
problem.
part. So definitely housing, right? That's going to be a big one. Housing are the top. Your first part of the question also kind of say what to do about it, or was that the second part?
Share your vision.
Yeah, share your vision. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Share your vision on those issues.
Okay, and that would kind of answer both parts?
Yeah,
Okay,
no, that's still the first part.
okay, all
But
right,
it
all right.
says, and then the second part is what are
Housing.
your priorities, if different from those listed?
If different, okay.
Yes.
Housing is absolutely key. Whether it differs from region to region, we do have a housing crisis, one way or another, and it is nationwide. And there are, again, many creative, direct and indirect ways. The township has to consider things, not just zoning, but we have to be able to, have the developers willing to do there. We have to have competitive, competition in the township too. For any of those things, we've got to support unions and in addition to things like zoning, we have to consider things like infrastructure, right? We have to make sure, are they going to get power, sewer, water, et cetera, right? And so with that, the second issue would be, again, the public service to what I call vulnerable groups. The low income, disability, the paycheck to paycheck people, the very young, the very old, right? These vulnerable groups in our community would be a priority because a lot of times they're invisible, and I think it's up to the town. I think it's the township's duty to make sure that we recognize, who's in most need in our community and gather that, first of all, listen to their needs and then say, wow, what can we do? How can we use our public safety institutions to help? How can we use the township lines of communication? How can we partner with non-governmental and maybe even other governmental organizations to address the issue? And then a third issue would be investment into what I call public places, right? So we have a lot of great public places here. And public places can be considered broad. So I'll combo that with things like the community center, continuing support for the library, and of course, our great public parks and bikes and pathways, as well as public places are also our businesses, right? We have plenty of big box retail stores with low wage, low paying jobs. I want to see more independent public places, independent small businesses that also couple with part of keeping wealth in the community. So it'd be really investing into the people that are here into the community. That would be our primary focus. And your second part of the question?
What are your priorities if different from those listed?
What are my priorities if different from listed? So the first part was like what I think the township priorities are, and then if my priorities are different than listed.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification. My other priority, different listed, would be public safety, right? Township has done a great job in investing in that. And but as we know, you can't just rest on your laurels on that, right? So you have to make sure that you're investing in things like public safety. And then, that's fire, medical, and of course, police, in addition to the three I listed.
You, Clark. Mine is a one-part question. Great, pretty direct and simple. Great. How important is collaboration and respect among board members?
Absolutely important. And from here, I didn't mention my teaching experience, which I do also consider a form of public service. I've taught community college now in my 7th year. Coincidentally, I teach at Delta College, but I have to drive all the way up to Saginaw to get there. Because I have to work with people and teach to students from all various backgrounds, including when I'm at Midland. I got to teach to a lot of rural people that you talk about sociology and class and race and gender. And, you got people that are conservative, from conservative households, a lot of different viewpoints. And as a teacher, though, it's my job to be objective, right? To put forth the best available information and to encourage them to critically think. Now, respecting all of you as experienced, knowledgeable people, right? So obviously I'm not here to teach the board, but I think my philosophy that I tell my students on day one also can apply here. And my respect that I would extend to the board is, number one, what's important to you is important. It's not my place to judge what your concern is, if it fits with my point of view or my concern. If it's important to you, then it's important. Number two, ask better questions. So as a board, right, can we communicate? Even if we, like I said, we may not hang around the same social circles, but can we communicate to get to a place where we're asking better questions, both of ourselves and of our government, right? Asking those better questions. And third and finally, let's take issue with what takes issue with us, right? Let's get the work done. Let's put the hard work in. Let's work with staff. Let's work with the community. Let's put that hard work in and take issue with what takes issue with us. And let's keep building our township up. So great. Thank you.
We actually have 7 questions, not 9. I said earlier 9. There are only 7.
Oh, great. What
Right,
number
you're
are we
like,
on?
"Phew, we're on 6.
This will be 6.
6, 2 more.
We're
Okay.
at 6. And it's not that bad. It doesn't have 15 different sections to it. If selected, do you intend to run for a full term in 2026?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. I ran, again, I novice political run. I didn't even think, all the way back to my upbringing that, and some of my early adult days I shared with you in the opening, but even in 2023, I really didn't have an intention to run. But through my advocacy on the one public land use issue, and through the other life things that now make me a permanent resident here, meaning my spouse and I and our 2 kids, we plan on staying here, right? So we really like it here. And so I'm like, and there's all these big national issues going on, and you feel so powerless sometimes to do anything about it. And then one of the messages that I remembered, both from my experiences, my education, as well as from groups, go to your local government, right? And so I ran a campaign. I invested half of my annual salary. Adjunct college professors don't make much, admittedly, but I do work full-time adjunct. But I invested half of my annual salary, my own money, into the campaign. Most of that was for, I did 3 mailers, I did flyers, right? And I did, I bought a website, I did Facebook ads, and I did And then I did canvassing in the sweltering sun, and that's where a lot of my other money went. I had to pay for childcare while I went out and knocked on doors. So I would absolutely, especially, on the merits of my performance of the township, right? Would run in 2026, and I think that's important too for the hard work that township puts in there for continuity. So my intention would be absolutely to run.
Thank you. And our
Yep.
last question is by
Great.
trustee Cascarilla.
Yeah, so Alana, is there anything else that you would like to add that hasn't already been covered?
Oh, wow. That's a great one. So, yes, and I will be concise. I just want to, I won't cover my experience or my service, but I just want to say that, again, it's amazing that I'm even here in a lot of ways. And a couple weeks ago, when I gave my opening speech, gosh, I thought it was all crafty and worded. And it was super convoluted and packed, and it just wasn't the right message. So today I just decided just to come here as a dedicated resident, a dedicated parent, a dedicated person of public service and who believes in the public good, because my goal is to also have a service of justice, right? A service of justice. And that can be social, racial, income, wealth, class, right? Gender, environmental. There are all sorts of forms of justice, but justice should be an overarching goal. And that's the last thing I want you to know. Justice, and then I will root that. I'm a focused, dedicated, smart, critical thinker, humble, yet I can be direct. I will say I can be a very direct person. And I'm dedicated to the health, connection, and well-being for all of our township.
Thank you so
Thank you for your
much.
questions, and thank you for your time.
And you are welcome to stay in the room if you would.
Because I won't have an advantage anymore. Great.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are ready for our next candidate, which is going to be Michelle Hart. Thank you, Peter. Welcome. Yeah. Right there, please. Thanks so much, Michelle. We'd like to give you a couple of minutes to give an opening statement. And then after that, we will each share in asking 7 questions of you. And if you could keep your answers down in a few minutes or so, that would be great.
I'll do my
But
best.
please give us the answers that you're comfortable with.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Good evening. Delta Township has been my home for 32 years. I raised my amazing family here. And I have spent years dedicating my time and effort to serving others. I am eager to continue that service in an official capacity as trustee, bringing my experience, commitment, and deep understanding of township governance to this role. I spent nearly a decade with the Michigan Townships Association, supporting township officials on local issues throughout the state of Michigan. It was here that I first thought about running for township government. I am passionate about preserving local government's authority to solve local issues that are consistent with the values, priorities, and needs of local residents. So often, legislation from Lansing aims to chip away at that authority. My township experience has given me valuable insight into the challenges local governments face, as well as best practices that help communities operate efficiently and effectively. Our community is a strong and thriving community, and I want to ensure we continue making decisions that foster growth, maintain high-quality services, and preserve the excellent quality of life that we all enjoy. Beyond my professional experience, my commitment to service runs deep. I've shared several examples of my volunteerism and have worked with many organizations. My passion is bringing people together and making sure they feel valued when they do so. I believe each person brings a uniqueness that should be celebrated. My success has come from being a champion for the cause and celebrating the contributions along the way. I've had the opportunity to speak at several events over the years to both small and large audiences. And if you've heard me speak, then you've heard me say, all are welcome in this place. I will bring the same passion to serving Delta Township as a trustee, and I will be an advocate for our residents, a collaborator with fellow board members, and a dedicated voice for the future of Delta Township. I'm ready to bring my experience and passion to this role, and I would be honored to serve in this capacity.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
opening remarks. And the first question is, please describe what you feel the duties and role of a township trustee should be.
Sure. Okay, so my understanding of the township role is to serve the community and to make the best choices that that benefit the community as a whole. So to really take a look at our strategic plan and then to make sure that the decisions that the board makes support those goals.
Thank you. Trustee Cascarilla?
Yes, Michelle, what do you value most about local government and its role in people's lives? And how should local government function with respect to its constituents / residents?
What was the second part of your question, Andrea?
How should local government function with respect to its
Sure, okay.
constituents and residents?
So I mentioned it in my opening statement, but I think that the role of government, the first part of your question was, it's really preserving this board's ability to serve its local residents and to solve issues as it sees fit here. Sometimes there's legislation or different things that chip away that try to make a one-size-fits-all approach that fits every township, and that's just not the case. And this board understands its residents and its residents' needs the best and can make those decisions for the residents here. And I think they do that with the second part of your question by holding town halls, listening to residents, getting together with, having a Q&A or having different opportunities to hear from residents, having them come to these meetings at night and talk about public comment so that they can express their concerns to the board and then having the board respond to those.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Bullock?
Our current township board has very diverse backgrounds, both professionally and personally in experience. Please explain what in your background and previous experiences make you uniquely qualified for this position. And further, how do you feel you can bring impact to the working cultural makeup of the board as well as share the board's values?
Sure. So there's two ways, and I did share that a little bit ago. So I do have a really strong background in township government, understanding the needs. One of the roles that I had when I worked at the Township Association was I took a fellowship position with the member services team. And if you've ever called there, they answer all sorts of questions from assessing to zoning and everything in between. I also had the opportunity while I was there to work on the Township Authorities and Responsibilities Handbook, which is a guide that township officials use. You may each have a copy of your own. And I was an editor of that book. So it really helped me to understand a lot of the issues and really every ordinance. I mean, there isn't anything that the township board can do that isn't afforded to them in statute. So really understanding where that comes from and then being able to speak to that to township officials when they would call and ask that. And what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
Was, how do you feel you can bring impact to the working cultural makeup of the board as well as share the board's values?
Sure. I've spent many years bringing people together in different opportunities and volunteering in organizations, both locally here and then working externally with other organizations. I've helped serve breakfast at Homeless Angels. I've helped bring food to folks at the Lansing Food Bank. And my goal is to make everybody feel welcome, to make everybody feel valued, and to listen to everybody's ideas and concerns because I think that together we collaborate and bring the best ideas. I might have one set of ideas, you might have another, but I think that when we blend those together, we come up with an idea or a solution that we never could have come up with on our own.
Thank you.
Trustee Malika.
Few parts.
Okay.
Please list what you see as being the top 3 issues facing Delta Township and share your vision of those issues. And what are your priorities if they are different from those that you list?
So the top 3 issues that I see facing our township are public safety, housing, and continuing and infrastructure. Those are the top 3. I have more, but those are the top 3. And so public safety, we have a millage that's on the upcoming May ballot. And it was on the ballot. I've supported the millage in November. And when I wanted to learn more about the millage, I went to Eaton County Commissioners meetings and I talked to key stakeholders and to the different departments and understood from their perspective the need. In our prosecutor's office, for example, they don't have the staff that is needed to prosecute cases. And so they have a big book of warrants and then they need to make choices on what cases that they can try. So I support that in public safety. And I'll continue to support that this May as well. Housing, we've talked about housing. We've heard some comments from people here over the last few months about housing. And I think that what we need to do is take a look at that. I know there are needs for housing. And what we need to do is listen to our community, bring that town hall meeting that Fonda you had suggested together, understand what the terms are, because that's the first part of even, I don't understand some of the terms, but I'm trying to learn. And then and bring that together. And then the infrastructure as well. So our township is growing. We have an aging infrastructure and then we have a need for new infrastructure. So we need to assess, maintain, and improve and then grow with our infrastructure. And what was I'm sorry, the second part of your question, would you please repeat it?
Yeah.
I should have brought my pen with me.
It's, what are your priorities if they're different from those that you listed?
Oh, so first of all, I think that my priorities are the board's priorities that we decide collectively together in our strategic plan. I think that's what the board needs to focus on. So even though we all might have our own ideas of what's important, I really think that when we decide together that these are our goals, and we work on those together and we solve them together, come up with the best solutions, and then we work together to add more goals to that if we have other things that we each individually think the township can and improve on, then we can work together to improve on that. But I think that what we do together is we work together as a team.
Thank you so much, Clerk Clark.
How important is collaboration and respect among board members?
It is 100% important. I believe that the best way that we work together is to be professional and to communicate towards a common goal. Like I said earlier, I want people to feel welcome. I believe everybody brings value. I believe everybody, what it was I thought my statement was brilliant, so I'll repeat it. That each person brings a uniqueness that should be celebrated. And so we won't always agree, but I think that everybody can be professional and can listen and can communicate in such a way that works towards a common goal. Because at the end of the day, we all love Delta Township. We all want the best for our residents and we all want the best for this community and our future.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're getting close.
Okay.
Question 6 of 7. There are only 7, not 9 questions.
I appreciate that because I'm saying down. I was like, who's going to answer that?
Okay. If selected, do you intend to run for a full term in 2026?
I will run in 2026, whether or not I'm elected or selected.
Thank you. Trustee Cascarella has the last
Yes,
question.
last
Thank
question,
you.
Michelle. Is there anything else that you would like to add that hasn't already been covered?
Sure. So I will add, just a couple ideas that I had. I didn't know what kind of questions you were going to ask, so I made myself some notes. But there are a couple ideas, and I don't know if they don't really fit into the strategic plan that we currently have, but we're looking towards a new one. But just a couple ideas. I think Delta Township does an excellent job of communicating to its residents through our magazine, through our newsletter, and through our social media. It's great that we have the revenue and the ability to communicate in that way to our residents. I think we reach a lot of people that way too, because if you don't get it by mail, if you're not a social media person, you're getting that communication. I think there's an opportunity to make that a little bit more interactive. You've asked, we've answered, maybe a column where people can write in and ask questions. And then also introducing it, like you had suggested, Fonda, with having a town hall. And then as I was out talking to residents this last year and meeting with a lot of people here in Delta Township, even though we have bakeries and stores that offer great produce and bakeries that offer great baked goods, I think there's an opportunity for us to bring our community together with a once a week farmers market. We have a lot of artisans in our community who are actually having to go to other communities to sell their cottage industry wares that they make in their house. I go to Meridian Mall to get my knives sharpened. So I think there's some opportunities for us to do that. And with those different opportunities, when we're there, just like when we have the Delta Rocks or some of the other events that we have here in the community, it puts us out there so that we have just that informal communication we can have with our township residents and gives them the opportunity to voice their concern instead of having to come to the microphone here.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
You're welcome. I didn't finish my water. My mouth
Sit here for the rest of the interviews.
I would enjoy that. Thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you. Can we bring in Doug Kozinski, please? Thank you, Peter. Are you all okay? Everybody here okay? Okay, nobody needs a water break or anything? We're good? All right. Yeah, keep going. Welcome back, Doug. We would ask that you give a 2-minute opening statement. And then we will ask you 7 questions, not 9, as I said earlier. And each board member will ask a question of you, those 7 questions. And we just ask that you try to keep your responses like around a few minutes for each question if possible.
Boy, you're giving me a tough task. That's an
I
unnatural.
know you
to me.
could do it. You could do it. All right, you have 2 minutes with your
Okay,
opening.
good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
First of all, thank you for having me here. It's greatly appreciated. I'm a 30-year township resident with 15 years of continuous service to the township and its citizens as an advocate, a trustee, and a planning commissioner. Throughout all of that experience, I have acquired extensive, current, broad and deep experience and knowledge with virtually every aspect of township government. On a regular basis, I deal with ordinances, planning, zoning, of course, non-discrimination, the sign ordinance. I was involved in developing some of those. The plans, the master plan, the strategic plan, parks, non-motorized transportation, policies, practices, operations, projects, of which there are a great many. I'm very familiar, for example, with the corridor improvement, parks and trails expansion, and the need for the development of new water treatment, and the priorities that the township has. Kind of peripherally, but I think relevant, I also serve on the E-Tran board, which is addressing the regionalization of public transit to better serve the needs for commerce, employment, education throughout the entire area with a seamless transportation system.
And as a trustee, I will be committed to encouraging transparency, accountability, access. That's one of the more difficult ones. And evidence-based decision-making. That was my entire career. Thus, I feel like I'm kind of uniquely situated to help the board with an immediate and seamless transition to a full board to continue to serve the citizens of Delta. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will start off the first question for you. And it is, please, let's see here. Please describe what you feel the duties and role of a township trustee should be.
Well, they're responsible for the governance of the township, which means developing policies, developing ordinances, all of the things that control what happens in the township. They are responsible for planning and preparing the township as it moves forward. Obviously, they are responsible for hiring and overseeing the township manager. I feel the job of a trustee also is to be a conduit to and from the citizens of the township. It's not a one-way street that we're speaking from on high. We need to be gathering information and sharing and working collaboratively to make decisions that are the best for the governance of the township and for its citizens.
Thank you so much. Our next question is by trustee Cascarilla.
Thanks, Doug. What do you value most about local government and its role in people's lives? And then the second part of the question is, how should local government function with respect to its constituents/residents?
What I value the most, I guess, is the fact that it is local government. One thing, when you get down to that lowest level, it's dealing with the things that affect people each and every day and every minute aspect of their lives. As you go up the chain, you're dealing with stuff which can seem a little hypothetical or beyond a level of importance for the citizens, but this is what's real, and it's real every day. And that's like I said, that's what I view as critically in what we do. And that's why the communication and everything else is so important, because it has that immediacy. Can you repeat the second half of the question again, please?
Yes. How should local government function with respect to its constituents/residents?
Well, I think it's kind of summed up by, transparency, accountability, all of that stuff. I think we need to be open. We need to be honest. We need to be, as I said, accessible. That means encouraging strongly input from the public, either individually or at meetings like this, making sure that we communicate opportunities for people to come and speak. And we also need to look for feedback on what we are doing, what impact our decision is having. The biggest thing about it is simply finding out what the wants and needs of the township and its citizens are, and then gathering all of the necessary evidence and making whatever decision is supported by that evidence and is best for the township as a whole.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our next question will be asked by trustee Bowen.
Our current township board has very diverse backgrounds, both professionally and personally. Please explain what in your background and previous experiences makes you uniquely qualified for this position. And further, how do you feel you can bring impact to the working cultural makeup of the board, as well as share our values?
Well, what part of what I think makes me unique is I spent 40 years as a researcher. So my entire mentality revolves around, as I said, gathering information, analyzing that information, numbers in some cases, simply input from people in other cases of how stuff impacts them. But it's just simply the way my mind works is to make the best possible decisions. And what was the second part of
The
that?
second one was, how do you feel you can bring impact to the working cultural makeup of the board as well as share the board's vision?
Well, I think I
Sorry,
can make a
values.
meaningful impact because of the breadth and depth of knowledge that I have about what the township does, how it does it, and why it does it. I think another contribution that I can make is I think I'm an effective representative of the township with the public. And I think one of the strengths that I had is I spent 40 years in meetings. Any of you have worked in an environment like that understand. But I think one of the skills I developed over that time is in building consensus. I try to get input from all sides and then synthesize that into a decision that is acceptable to everyone, not perfect for anyone in most instances. But I'm good at facilitating those kinds of discussions to help us collectively reach the best decisions that we can make to govern and manage the township. Apart from that, the technical skills to be able to analyze and gather information, but I think it's at a much higher level than that. That's kind of just, in the background, that's where I get the information and then you go from there.
Thank you.
Two parts. Please list what you see as being the top 3 issues facing Delta Township and share your vision on those issues. And what are your priorities if different from those that you list?
Well, let's see, the top 3 issues. One of them, there's an immediacy to, and which is the public safety millage that's coming up in May, which obviously has huge implications for the township because it directly impacts how we get our police protection right now. So that's certainly one. I think continuing to be an attractive place for businesses and manufacturers to move in and support those businesses. Part of that, as I mentioned, is the E-Trans facilitating transportation to, and every aspect of facilitating businesses doing their work, hiring and maintaining people. There was a comment made earlier on housing. Housing, I am convinced, is a significant issue in the township. I look out and see houses that are available, but I see them at $1,200-1,500 a month for a working person. That's not a workable kind of a situation. And I think the continuing development and the CIA is critical to the development of the Saginaw corridor, obviously, but simply the development of Delta Crossings Center, which has the potential to be a significant asset. It could be a draw to the township. It could be a draw to new residents. Ideally, it would be kind of regional and bring people in. But I think continuing the development of that and improving the businesses that we have and spreading out some from the Saginaw commercial area to encourage the improvement of those neighborhoods on both sides of Saginaw from the mall over to Waverly. Those are our oldest neighborhoods, but they have a tremendous amount of potential. So, I mean, that's the 3 that occurred to me right off the top of my head. So.
And there's a second part, which is
Uh-huh.
what are your priorities if they're different from those that you listed?
Well, priorities, the first one is the priority simply because it's got the immediacy and it would have such huge implications for everything else if we don't get that. My second priority among all of those things is the continuing redevelopment, new development and redevelopment that's represented by the rezoning, which made us able to make improvements by putting in the overlay districts with special zoning considerations. But again, like I said, the improvement of the Saginaw corridor, the residences off the Saginaw corridor, and the development of Delta crossings and other businesses. Those right now, I think, are the most important, both immediately and as we develop Delta Township going forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Clerk Clark?
Mine is a one-part simple question. How important is collaboration and respect among board members?
Critical. Without collaboration and respect, we have 7 differing opinions that aren't listening to one another. And as a result, in my experience, are unlikely to arrive at the best decision. Decision-making to me is dependent more on listening than it is on talking. If board members do not respect and collaborate with one another, we don't get all of the information and all of the viewpoints out there. And I think without those, it really impedes our effort to come up with high quality decisions. I've always said that among my friends, the ones that I enjoyed the most were the ones that I agreed the least with, because those discussions teach you new things and new points of view. So the ability to collaborate, exchange information while being respectful is absolutely critical to the functioning of the board.
Thank you for that. We have 2 left, 2 questions left.
Yeah.
Getting there. If selected, do you intend to run for a full term in 2026?
Good Lord willing, and my body holds together, yes, I do. I really value the service that I give to the township. It's certainly my intent to be involved for as long as I am able to do it. And yeah, I would at this point intend to run again in 26, yes.
Thank you. And our last question is by Trustee Cascarilla.
Thank you. So Doug, is there anything else that you would like to add that hasn't already been covered?
Oh, that's one of those tough open-ended ones. I guess the only thing I would like to reemphasize, I've said it, is I was raised in all of my experience was towards service. That was why I worked in government for 40 years. I think we all benefit from the government and from society at large, but that carries with it an obligation to give back in any way that we can. And I happen to get involved here and would like to continue to do so. And as I said, I think I bring some unique skills and experience to the table. Certainly not as though the other 3 aren't every bit as qualified. Any way you go, the township is going to be well served, but that's kind of who I am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doug. We appreciate you participating in this process, and you are welcome to stay in the room as we go on to our last interview.
Very good. Thank you all.
So much. And we are ready for Joshua Live. Thank you, Peter. You all are hanging in there? Okay, good. Board members, okay? Welcome, Joshua.
Hello, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Yeah.
We are asking that you give a 2-minute kind of opening statement to all of us. And then each board member will ask you a question. There are 7 questions, not 9. And we just ask that you keep your responses to around a few minutes, if you would, please, for each of the questions. So we will turn it over to you to give your opening statement.
All right, well, thank you and hello, everyone. Want to first start out by saying how grateful I am to have made it to the final round of the applicant process. Thank you all so much and your administrative staff for moving me forward in the final 4 candidate selection. And to the other candidates in the room, I just want to say thank you to their commitment to serving in our community. Without dedicated community members like that, Delta Township wouldn't be as great as it is today. So that service is greatly appreciated. This next portion, I was going to talk about my support, but out of respect for what some of the individuals brought forward, I'm going to just not discuss that. And I would like to formally apologize to everybody for that. That was not my intention at all. So yeah, I'm going to skip that portion of it. So please apologize the briefness of the rest of it. But with the conversations that I had with some of the folks in our area, and others in the community as well, there was definitely a common denominator. And that's building upon the vibrancy of Delta Township so our community continue to grow and be a desirable place to call home. 2 weeks ago, I outlined just a few of my ideas to do just that. And by fostering a business-friendly environment, continuing the great work this board has done with updating and expanding our places of recreation, and prioritizing access to safe and attainable housing for all income levels, I believe that together we can take Delta Township to new heights. And yeah, that's it for my statement. Unfortunately, I apologize for axing a third of it out, but thank you all again, and I look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you so much. The first question is, please describe what you feel the duties and role of a township trustee should be.
Yeah, to keep it somewhat brief, the duties and the roles are definitely to be a voice for everybody in the community. As a lot of folks have said, sometimes there are individuals in the community and groups in the community who feel like they haven't had a voice. And it's not just like that here. Of course, it's like that throughout the entire state. I've witnessed that in the state house and within the state senate. So I believe the primary role will be to be a voice for everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the second question will be asked by trustee Cascarilla.
Josh, what do you value most about local government in its role in people's lives? And then the second part to the question is, how should local government function with respect to its residents?
You said, how do I view local government?
How do you value?
Value.
Or I'm sorry, what do you value most about local government in its role in people's lives?
Mhm.
And then how should local government function with respect to its residents?
Yeah, working within the state legislature, you see everything from really a 30,000 foot view. Even our budget process is, $84 billion. And then, you get all the way down to your local level. It just touches everybody significantly more closely. And just being that much more involved and being at that level in the community, I just feel like is significantly valuable. And just not being way up and just sort of focusing on the people in your community and across the whole state is valuable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. The next question will be asked by trustee Bowen.
Josh, our current township board has very diverse backgrounds, professional and personal experience. Please explain what in your background and previous experiences makes you uniquely qualified for this position. And further, how do you feel you can bring impact to the working cultural makeup of the board as well as share the board's values?
Thank you. Again, sorry to keep going back to the state legislature. I worked primarily in city of Detroit offices. In some of those districts in the city of Detroit, I believe in one of them, there's 86 different languages spoken. And during my time in those offices, we worked with individuals from a vast amount of communities. The best thing that we found was to actually just meet with as many as we could and to hear all their concerns, because there's no way that we can, we don't ever want to tell somebody, we know what's best for you. So what we did is just met with them individually and hopefully address most of their concerns while we were going through the legislative process. And that's what I would like to bring to the board, just going to those communities within our township and taking that same approach.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question will be asked by trustee Juanita.
Two parts. Please list what you see as being the top 3 issues facing Delta Township and share your vision on those issues. The second part is, what are your priorities, if different from those listed?
Yeah, so my top 3 top 3 priorities today are, like I said, the ones I had discussed prior, and that is building upon our parks and recreation. We have over 900 acres of parks in our community, and I believe, I may be wrong on this, you guys will know better than I would, I believe 3 of those are undeveloped, and I think focusing on those areas and then improving, of course, on the other ones as well, is a big issue for me. We have a lot of residents that use those. Me personally, my wife and children, it would be one of my top 3. The third one is housing, and in Detroit, coming from a Detroit office, one thing that they've done, everybody from those in the lower average median income households of 30% all the way up to those of 150%, they've done as much as they could to work with developers to bring more housing to Detroit and also to fix up some of the blight. We obviously don't have the same, blight concerns here, but some of the things that they've done, they had 71 different projects valued at about $1 billion. Again, it's a different community there. This is significantly more scaled down. But I think taking that approach and, looking at some of those same incentives to make our community more vibrant, as I had stated before, would be ideal. Another thing that they do is they work with state and federal officials to bring in dollars to be able to offer 0% interest home repair programs and also more stabilization programs that helps with community cleanup. And then finally, the last thing is working with our local businesses. Again, one of the things we worked with some folks across the state was bringing more dollars into those communities for small business development. And one of the areas we had worked to bring a small business hub was actually a $3.4 million grant that we worked towards getting, that we worked with MEDC on to establish, I believe it was 24 different hubs. And they give tailored advice to small businesses based on the area community that they're located in. And they also provide coaching, training, and different networking opportunities for everybody. So I think those 3 would be my top.
Do you have any priorities that are different from those that you listed?
No, I just wanted to dive a little bit deeper into those. I know last time I didn't get specific, so that's why I just want to get the specifics this time.
Okay. Thank you so much. Clark.
Mine is one part simple, correct. How important is collaboration and respect among board members?
I think it's absolutely imperative, and not just among board members. Of course, that is most important. Those are the people that you're closest to. You guys all sit just a few feet from each other, but also regional collaboration with the city of Lansing, with our local townships. We have 15 other townships just in our county. We touch a lot of different areas here, and I would say that is extremely important. I mean, just like in the legislature, thankfully, there's not 148 of you. So make it a little bit more personal. But yeah, it's absolutely important. The last thing you want is, an issue to arise, then everybody gets pretty bad in the legislature. So it'd be nice if that wasn't the case here. Thank you.
We're down to the last 2 questions.
Mhm.
And mine is just one question, not a multi. If selected, do you intend to run for a full term in 2026?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And our last question will be asked by trustee Cascarone.
Yes, so is there anything else that you would like to add that hasn't already been covered?
That's actually one question I didn't anticipate. Unfortunately, it's embarrassing. I shouldn't even said that out loud. Yeah, I had covered, went over this a little bit in the last meeting, but when my wife and I were looking to move, we wanted to keep our family here. We came here, I grew up in Lansing Township just next door. She grew up in Brighton. We wanted to stay right here. And as a matter of fact, we moved closer to our church, closer to our kids' school, but we want to make sure that we stayed in Delta Township. I'm absolutely committed to Delta Township for now into the foreseeable future. This is where, I call my home. This is where I raise my kids. And it's the most important place to me. So I would add that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, we appreciate the information from all of the candidates. You shared a lot with us. You came as your authentic self. We appreciate that. And unless there's any questions from the board, I will ask that each cast your vote. Do you need more time or are you good? Everybody good? And we're going to ask Courtney, she will come and take our ballot. And please put your name on your ballot.
So there are 4 votes for Josh Lyman and 1 vote for Alana Christ.
Okay. Thank you, Courtney. We have 4 votes for Josh Lyman and 1 for Alana. Thank you so much for everybody's participation in that and your patience as we walk through that. Welcome, Joshua. You can be sworn in tonight after the meeting is over, or you can make arrangements with Mary to do that at another time, whatever is convenient for you, because we still have board business to conduct, including a closed session, which shouldn't take too long. So I know you have young children. We leave that decision to you if you would like to stay or if you'd like to make arrangements to come back, make arrangements with Clerk Clark to be sworn in. Oh, and before that, thank you. It pays to have, Brian is not here tonight. Manager Reed is not, he's a little under the weather, but we have Erin, who's amazing too. So she reminded me, I need a motion.
Yeah.
So is there a motion?
I move to appoint Josh Lyman for the open trustee position.
Support. All right, we are going to have a roll call vote for that today. Is there any discussion before the roll call vote? Having heard none, Clerk Clark?
Clerk Clark is a, yes. Treasurer Castro, excuse me, Trustee Cascarella.
Yeah.
Trustee Bowen.
I'm sorry, you said Bowen?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Trustee Monica,
Yes.
Supervisor Brewer,
Yes.
and then Treasurer Peterwall is absent. So motion carries.
The motion has passed. Again, thank you to all of the candidates, and Joshua, welcome to the board. Welcome to the board. All right, let me find my agenda to see where we are and what happens next. Next is item number 7 under new business, and that is the MISTA grant agreement. And I'm going to turn that over to Erin to walk us through what that's all about.
Sure. As the board is familiar, we received an appropriation grant in the amount of $2 million from the state. We are now working our way through that process of, checking all the boxes that need to be checked. The next step is to approve this grant agreement. This outlines the terms under which we're allowed to spend this $2 million. As was mentioned earlier in the meeting, we have until August of 2029 to spend this money. So we do have a considerable amount of time to build out the program that we want to use this money for. It is, I'll say, only $2 million. As we all know, the cost of everything keeps going up. And so it's not a huge windfall, but it is a good sum of money that we can utilize towards some of these housing programs. There are 4 general activities that we can utilize this for, such as ordinance updates, updates to our infrastructure. We are working through what those would look like. We'll have some more discussion at future public meetings about how we want to best utilize those dollars. As mentioned, we have some time, so there's not an immediate rush to make a decision tonight on exactly the program we want to use, just that we want to move forward with the grant agreement. This is one of the tools that the township has been entertaining to work through housing initiatives. We got a grant to do some master planning update to look at development as a whole that will include housing as a component. We have, as the board knows, our chill grant, which is helping to do some homeowner rehab. So this is just another tool to help address some of the housing needs in the community.
Excellent, excellent. Is there a motion? Trustee Cascarella?
I move that the Delta Township Board approve the enhancement grant agreement, LEG -2025-10541-ENH between the Michigan State Housing Development Authority and Delta Township for $2 million, and authorize the township manager to sign the agreement.
Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved by trustee Cascarella and supported by trustee Mohica. Is there any discussion? And I just want to say, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, trustee Bowen.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, as I mentioned earlier, this is simply approving the grant. We have a ways to go with determining how we want to move forward with using those dollars. And we, again, as it's been so worded, a town hall, I love that word, but we are really going to talk about the ABCs of housing and what that is and what that means for us. So that is yet to come. So I wanted to make it perfectly clear, this has not been dedicated anywhere. We are going to have conversations on how we want to use that. Trustee Bowen?
Okay, so then let's talk about, it says in there that it has to be spent according to the boilerplate language. And then Exhibit B in that document has the $2 million broken out into consultants, outside contractors, sub-grants, water and sewer infrastructure, sidewalk and parking infrastructure, construction, and administrative costs. So my first question is, does this mean that we can only use this grant money for new construction?
As opposed
to perhaps we take the $2 million and we look at the east side of the township where we have a lot of housing stock that might need upgrades for efficiency, for accessibility for seniors, just making them more desirable. And is that something that we could look at in addition to looking at other programs through the state where we can get more funding? Because we're running out of real estate to build new houses. And if we're looking for developers to build affordable or workforce housing, there aren't as many of those as there are developers to build market rate housing. So looking at innovative and creative ways to capitalize and increase the value and usefulness of the housing stock that we already have, I would like to see us explore using this $2 million as kind of like our own chill grant where we can say, you need a new roof for your house. Well, great, let's help you with that. And then you can stay in that house for another 15 years or something like that.
Yeah, is there?
So it's my understanding that this grant program was intended for creation of additional housing units, not for
Okay.
rehab of existing units, that was the
So
intention.
that
to
is-
Create additional units.
Okay.
And I don't know.
But Mary, oh, sorry, I thought you were calling. I just wanted her to finish.
No, I was done.
So not building brand new, but rehabbing an existing building that isn't used for housing would qualify for that, for example?
Establishing. Right.
Right, so it's my understanding, I mean, I've gone through this concept, that it's about expanding the number, so we have more units of housing. I like your idea, but I'm not sure that, because the chill grant has been pretty,
That's for repairing.
pretty
But this is-
successful, right? So this is expansion.
So that's a good question. I think that's probably a good question for Mishta to clarify if we had an existing, say, a vacant commercial site that wanted to get redeveloped and repurposed into housing, would that be an acceptable use of these funds? I think that's a good question for our state.
Because I think about, like Walter French,
Yes.
for example,
Yes.
that project that they did in Lansing, all of the projects that they've done, housing and reuse of buildings in Detroit. I listened to
Programs.
Mayor Duggan's presentation last week, and it was just phenomenal, the ability to expand their housing using reappropriating existing property, so to speak. But so we'll see lots of ideas.
And multi-use.
Will you check on that? Yeah, we can get an answer for that. To make sure that that would be an acceptable use.
Any more discussion? Great conversation. If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're on to number 8, adoption of earned sick time policy, and Erin's going to walk us through that ever-changing, quickly law that took place.
So that was very exciting, quite literally on Thursday night, ahead of the new law taking effect Friday morning. The legislature did make some amendments to that law. So we have drafted a policy that is in compliance with that updated and amended earned sick time policy. In short, way back in 2018, the state received a petition initiative from interested persons to require all employers, so not just government, but any employer in the state of Michigan, to provide paid sick leave for their eligible employees. That went through a number, I won't belabor, it's late, the whole process that it went through, but ended in a Supreme Court ruling that resulted in the actual language that was put forth by the petitioners going into effect on the 21st. The legislature did come through and make some amendments. There were some concerns from some employer groups that some of the language as written was difficult, especially for small businesses to implement. And so they did hear those concerns. One of the concerns the township had is it didn't take into account employers who already have robust sick leave policies. And so what was required under the act was actually less in our case than what we currently provide our full-time employees. So thankfully, they also heard those types of concerns from those employers that already provide sick leave to their employees and offered a carve-out exemption that if you're already providing certain level of leave, you're considered in compliance. So for our full-time employees, what this revised policy does is it keeps their existing sick leave benefit intact, doesn't make any changes to how they accrue it, but it does expand how they can use it to be in compliance with the act. So now they can use it for those additional purposes that the act did allow for. In addition to your typical, I don't feel well, I need to stay home type sick leave, it also allows for certain child issues that you can attend school meetings and things, domestic violence issues that weren't previously covered under certain sick leave policies. So it expands that use to those additional issues, and it also allows for expanded persons who would qualify. So it's not just I'm sick or my child is sick, but also it expands the people who I'm caring for that are not well, that I need to use this sick leave to care for. So that's in a nutshell what's happening with our full-timers. For our part-timers, we previously allowed for certain eligible part-time employees to earn sick leave as required under the Paid Medical Leave Act. That was the state solution back in 2018, instead of adopting this. When that got thrown out by the courts, this replaces that. So it expands that part-time employee to now all of our part-time employees will be earning 1 hour for every 30 hours worked. And again, they follow the same use allowances as under the act. And then they have certain carryover provisions as well that follow the act. So that is my very quick summary.
Excellent overview.
Mhm.
Is there, can we get a motion first and then we'll go into discussion? Trustee Bowen? Okay.
I'll make the motion. I move that the Delta Township Board approve the policy for Earned Sick Time Act compliance effective February 21st, 2025.
And is there support?
Support.
Thank you. Now, discussion. Is there any discussion? Trustee Mohica?
Just clarification. I don't know if I read it or just didn't read it correctly. What happens is this when you accumulate your sick leave for the year, do you lose it? Does this roll over? I'm just curious. Does that?
So there's slightly different rules for our full-time and part-time, but in general, yes, you carry over leave up to certain bank amounts. For our full-timers, if they max out their banks, they get paid out. For the part-timers, they have a max and that's all they can accrue over. But they will also be accruing fewer hours because of course a part-time employee doesn't work a full-time number of hours.
Oh, okay. So that's, so is that like just a year to year, like a January to January or?
Yep.
Kind of thing, and then they roll it out. Okay.
The accrual year, it's based on an annual basis. So January to December is the accrual year. So in December, if I've accrued, say 50 hours, I can carry, and it doesn't matter full-time, part-time, I can carry those hours over into the next year. So 72 is the max that a person can carry over year to year.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
It's a fair amount. So if you think about, if you were working a full 40-hour week, you're not even earning 72 hours in a year. So for our part-timers, that's well over a year's worth of hour accruals.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Do you have anything?
Yes, I do. I may have to come and talk to you more about that. My vested interest, of course, is the election workers. Because we lobbied hard to have them exempted from this because some years you're not going to work much at all. Last year, our election workers with 4 elections worked a lot of hours. And the first point on that are permitted to schedule their own working hours. Obviously, election day is election day. So that statement's relatively alarming. For early voting, that's fine. You can pick what days you want to work, but
Regular election days.
I would say, as I understand how the state's interpreted that, I could say as an election worker, I'm not available to work this election.
perfect. Won't schedule you. Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Trustee Bowen?
I don't have a question. I'd just like to make a statement. I'm pleased to see that the Delta Township staff have a policy and have had a policy for earned sick time that is better than what is required, making this a great place to work and showing how much we appreciate our employees.
Thank you. All right, are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Okay, we are now on to the manager's report.
I do have something to report.
Okay.
If I can. So Brian does send his apologies for being absent today unexpectedly, but here I am. So we did want to extend our thanks to the Parks Department on February 23rd. For those who didn't make it out, they held they called it the Fit and Frosty event. It was very successful, great event, tons of turnout. We really want to thank the Parks and Recreation folks and everyone involved. It was a great coordination with Eaton County Parks. They did a fabulous job. The board may recall this is something you identified in your strategic plan that you wanted to see some winter recreation events. So we're really excited that we were able to get this together. It's going. Quick update on the chill program. We are working with CAP to do their site visits to review the eligible properties and their potential improvements. We have also published the required notices on our program-wide environmental review. So if anybody's interested, that is available for review. That's for the grant program as a whole. The site-specific environmental assessments are being conducted by CAP once we determine that a site is available and has eligible work to be done. Those are gonna include things like lead testing, radon testing, lead paint testing, radon testing, those types of, building specific environmental assessments. For those interested, the Bank Intercounty Drain Project, they are doing bid openings later this week. So this will be kind of where the rubber hits the road, that we know what that project is going to look like in terms of actual costs, now that we'll start seeing those bids come into and we expect to hear back from the Bank Intercounty Drain Board on how they want to move forward with that.
Yeah, with that, Erin, do you know, so if they're doing the bids, I don't know what the timeline is for that process, but I believe what follows that is residents within the drain district getting notification of what their assessment is estimated to be then?
Yeah, I mean,
And what's the timing of that?
Offhand, I don't know the exact timing of that, so it's also gonna depend on how many bids they receive, because of course, if they receive a fair number of bids, it will take them some time to go through the
Process.
bids, review them, if they have to do any interviews with contractors, those types of thing, and then they'll have to go through the actual assessing portion of it. But I can get more specific information back to the board.
Thank you.
as
I know a
well.
lot of people have been asking and wanting to know those
Yeah,
details.
and I would encourage people to keep an eye, they do have a website, keep an eye on the website, because they'll keep posting information there as well. Just want to acknowledge that several of the board members and staff attended the annual chamber dinner. It was really great. We had 2 local businesses receive awards. The Socialite Society received the Diversity Star Award, and GM received the Legacy Award, so that was a really nice event. And only other point is that we did reference our master plan. We had our kickoff meeting with our consultants, so we're gonna be seeing a lot of exciting things happening with that, including some public engagement opportunities. So that's what's going on, but any questions? I can try and answer.
Are there any questions for Deputy Township Manager? Okay, haven't heard any. Next on the agenda are board member committee reports. If there are any committee reports from any board members that you've attended, that you'd like to share, please do. Trustee Bowen.
Last Wednesday evening. I'm sorry. Last Wednesday evening, I attended my first Tri-County Regional Planning Commission meeting as a representative of this board and the residents of Delta Township. And just for everyone's knowledge, the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission serves Eaton, Ingham, and Clinton counties. It is made up of representatives from the 3 counties, county commissioners, but also other municipalities like Delta Township, Meridian Township, City of East Lansing, City of Lansing. I think DeWitt might have one too, but there's also a non-voting MDOT representative and that sort of thing. And this is a regional group that looks at regional issues. Their top one that they look at and work on is transportation, because nobody does transportation just within their own little borders. It impacts all of us. So they work with a lot of federal money, grant money. They do a lot of planning. They maintain a 50-year regional transportation plan that is being updated this year and submitted for approval. And then there is a 5-year plan that's more specific, and that is being updated this year as well. A second area that they focus on is economic and community development, and they're leaning into housing because they too did a study. The state did a statewide housing survey in 2023, I believe it was. And that is on the state's website, looked at the whole state and all the housing needs, but Tri-County also did their own regional housing study and work and put that up on their website. And in response to that, they are facilitating Clinton County and Ingham County in working with the My Neighborhood program, which is MISHDA at the state. Eaton County has not applied to work with that, but local municipalities can. And so that is an opportunity for Delta Township in the future to work with Tri-County and the state to get those dollars for rehabbing the east side. So that's another opportunity. The third area that Tri-County focuses on is environmental issues. And I'm happy to bring this to everyone's attention here. They were awarded a grant called Art Storm for their 3 counties, and it's a public art and placemaking initiative. It was very competitive. And the money will go into all of the different municipalities that belong to Tri-County to create educational and beautification art around storm drains, to educate people about the importance of our storm drains, what goes in the storm drain, what does not. And money for that will be for the paint. Local artists will be hired to do that. And I've already spoken with Manager Reed and would like us to expand that and maybe do some volunteer stuff and involve kids and have an event and that sort of thing. So that will be this year, and that's kind of exciting. So if anyone has any questions, Tri-County Regional Planning Commission meets once a month. The meetings are open to the public, so you can attend those meetings. If anyone is interested in going and understanding what's going on regionally, let me know.
Thank you. We appreciate the update. The only one I want to share is, I attended a Juneteenth planning meeting, thanks to Mary Moreland. She's heading that up for the township, and we had a very vibrant discussion on what we're going to do this year for Juneteenth, and there's going to be some exciting things going on with that. So thank you for that. Any other reports that anyone wants to share? Okay, we are on to Committee of the Whole. And the first thing under Committee of a Whole is our appointment of boards and commissions policy discussion. I mentioned at, I think, our last meeting that it was time to refresh our appointments policy. It was aged, and there were some areas in which we needed to refresh or add. There were some gaps in the policy. So Manager Reed and the team have put together a draft for us to take a look at. I'm not going to go into detail with it tonight. It's out here for you to review, and we will have it on the agenda for the next board meeting. So if there's something that's not in it that you think should be in it, please let Manager Reed know. If there are any questions or challenges you have for the improved or the inputted sections into the policy, again, let Manager Reed know. You know, he's a gatherer of all that stuff, and will bring forth a policy for us to review and approve at the next meeting. Oh, are there any questions, Erin? Did I miss anything with that? No, I think it's okay. Trustee Bowen?
I'm curious to know my fellow board members' opinion. When we put together the CIA board policies, one of the things that we put into our policy was an attendance policy for CIA members. And I'm wondering whether other board members would like to think about attendance policies for other commissions. Also, training requirements. When we ask someone to serve on a commission, can we ask them to use the resources of the MTA to help educate them on the function of their commission, especially things like CIA, planning, our more important boards, the zoning, board appeal, that sort of thing, just to make sure that people have the tools that they need to understand what they're doing.
Clerk Clark?
I really support a attendance policy. And it's easier said than done, because everybody will always have a reason why they're not there. But our work to be a township of excellence has often, I will say, maybe not often, I'll just say has been challenged by a particular one or two commissions and their attendance. And so we've had to work hard and probably could have gotten ourselves there a little easier, and it's a little less stressful for staff. I do feel that if you take the responsibility, you take it with the understanding this is when you are supposed to be there. Of course, I feel that way about the board also. Our board, I think we need to role model attendance. but I do think it's an important piece because oftentimes you can, we, during my time on the board, we have had meetings that had to be canceled for lack of quorum. And if we have a business that's waiting for something important, it's, should not be a whole nother burden on a department head to try to get their board, their commission members present so that they can deal with an issue. So I do think that it needs to be stressed in their orientation when they do come on a board, and we need to track it.
Trustee Cascarella, anything?
Yeah, I conceptually, I fully support that too. You know, we serve on some of our commissions and boards where we've had challenges and folks are showing up and we don't have quorum, and so we have to cancel meetings, and that's just, I feel irresponsible and unfair to those applicants that are coming before for decisions. I know there are always unique circumstances. Sometimes there are temporary circumstances where someone may be unable to attend. So I hope we create, as we look at that, and I'm sure there's ways, and we can look at some models that other communities have used, but hope to build that in. I know we've had some longstanding volunteer appointees on some of those positions that have gone through periods where they've had some temporary health issues that prevented them from participating short term. And I hate to just exclude them, but yes, broadly agree with the policy, having a policy of that nature, and just want to make sure we build in a little flexibility for some of those kind of temporary circumstances that may warrant it.
Okay, thank you. So Aaron,
I have one question for Aaron. I'm sorry if I could. So on, Peter, help me, is it ZBA that has alternates?
yes.
Is that allowed or by statute? And is it allowed for other, could we do it for other boards and commissions? Could we do it for planning commission, for example?
We do not do it for planning commission. Typically, the composition of the boards and commissions, if they are covered in state law, that is covered. So the ZBA in the state act says there shall be 2 alternates. The planning commission description does not include alternates, so I don't think we could apply that.
We couldn't go rogue, is that what you're telling me?
Advise against going rogue.
Oh, no, going rogue.
Alternate position, so that's been a godsend on the
Thank you. We
ZBA.
just need to make really good decisions
We
then.
do, we do.
Thank you.
So Aaron, I think it is the desire of the board that we look at additional areas to add attendance, some training for the new, and then was there something? Were those the 2 areas?
Those were the 2, yeah.
So if you could look at those and recommend language to be included with these revisions and additions?
So one thing I've seen done in other communities is part of their consideration policy, if you're talking about a reappointment, is looking at attendance. And they typically look at it over the term of the appointment, not, a short window, but if you're appointed to a 3-year term, if over that 3-year term, you've attended 70% of the meetings, then you're considered, C student, okay, you pass. But we could obviously talk through what would make the most sense here.
That's a good way to appreciate that. Okay, so we have chatted over that, and we have a direction to move forward, and this will come back to you in our next meeting. Next on the agenda is we have a closed session. And I have on my note here is this Aaron and Jake are going to tell us why we're going into closed session.
So we're going into closed session to discuss considering purchasing real property. So talking through that strategy of cost and pricing and that sort of thing.
Very good. Okay.
I move to, were you gonna?
I was gonna make the motion.
Yeah.
Andrea?
Oh, she can. Go ahead.
Who's moving it? I move that the Delta Township Board adjourns to closed session.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no opposed? We will be going into closed session and we will return back here and reopen or come back out of closed and go into public comment. Shouldn't take too long.
So you can stay tuned.
Yep, we will be back. Okay, so we are back in order.
At 8:36.
At 8:36, and now we have public comment for the second time. Is there anybody?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, so before we go to public comment, will you just give me one moment of grace? We need a motion to allow the staff to move forward with the perusal of an easement,
Land acquisition.
a land acquisition, as we discussed in the closed session. Is there a motion?
Support.
Is there a
So moved, sorry.
Yeah, good. It's been moved by trustee Cascarella and supported by trustee Mohica. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No one's opposed. That motion passes. Thank you. Okay, now we're back to public comment.
Okay, David Howell, 9487 Guinea Road.
Thank you.
You killed me with the two-part question, so this is my two-part public comment. I would feel a lot better if you ran it by council on whether or not this MISHDA grant agreement is a binding contract or not. Because the boilerplate language that was referred to in here says that the $2 million is to support an affordable workforce housing development project. That's what it says in the boilerplate language. It doesn't say you can use the money to, revamp housing and stuff like that. It says workforce housing, and workforce housing has a legal definition. The legal definition of workforce housing is 80 to 120% of the median area median income. And the area median income is based on an annual family household income. Those are legal definitions. And so workforce housing is for people that are, as I said, 80 to 120% in this area of the Lansing, East Lansing area median income. So workforce housing is not what I originally thought, for workers and all that other stuff. They have to meet the household income, and that's family household income. So it can't be two unmarried people living together. There has to be a relationship there. But aside from that,
Yes.
the elephant in the corner to all of this is the tax revenue that will be lost if the current housing ordinance is changed to allow for housing tax abatements. And I'm not a developer, never have been, don't want to be, but I did sleep at a Holiday Inn. And developers of affordable workforce housing, It's almost impossible for them to make money unless they have a housing tax abatement. And the reason that that it's profitable is because it eliminates the state on your property taxes, on your winter and summer property taxes. It eliminates the state education tax, the school debt, the school sinking fund, the Lansing Community College, the RISA special education, RISA vocational education, county operating, county jail, county 911, county E-Tran, county juvenile, county medical care, county road, county parks, township operating, township paramedic, township public safety, township sheriff building, and township district public library.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Our next public speaker. I love it when it's a young person.
My name is Jillian Lyman, 5819 Whitehaven Drive. Thank you for choosing my dad, Josh Lyman. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me and my family and everyone who wanted my dad to be a trustee. Thank you for the chance and voting for him to come on the board. I'm excited for 2026 for my dad maybe being trustee again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more public comment? If not, I'm going to adjourn the meeting and then we will have a swearing in ceremony after that. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.